Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Amaral. I'm the Assistant Executive Director here at PACE in New Bedford. We are a community action agency serving Greater New Bedford. Our mission is to deliver innovative and effective programs and services to members of the Greater New Bedford community in their pursuit of brighter futures. Seeing viewers start to pour in, so I apologize for the technical difficulties with our first link, and thank you for joining us. Just going to give it a second so more people can join in. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Just waiting on a few more. So good evening. As I mentioned, my name is Josh Amaral. I'm the Assistant Executive Director here at PACE, and we are proud to bring tonight this opportunity to discuss first-time homebuyer programs in our area. This is in response to community needs and community conversations we've heard loud and clear, which is that people are paying too much in rent. People are paying $15,000, $17,000, $18,000, $2,000 a month in rent and are sort of fed up with good reason. And many people have voiced their opinion to us that for what they're paying in rent, they should be able to explore home ownership and own their homes. And we agree. We think that's a very valuable component in sort of chasing the American dream. And so we are glad to present you tonight with this discussion and have a series of very talented and very dedicated panelists with us tonight from a few different agencies throughout the city, a few different perspectives. Many of them are experts in navigating these programs and will help you find the best programs for you. I'll introduce them shortly, but again, I want to thank you on behalf of our Executive Director, Pam Keechler, and our Board of Directors for joining us. And we will let me first take you through who our panelists are and introduce them. Firstly is Carmen Mahill. She is the Director of the PACE Housing Opportunity Center. So she's right here with us at PACE. Many of you have come to know her in the community for what PACE puts out in terms of apartment listings, help with rental assistance, case management, finding units, and navigating all things housing. So she will speak to you tonight about her experience with rents in the community and also some of her experience becoming a first-time homebuyer herself. We're also joined by Goretti Joachim, who is working for MassHousing. They're a fantastic agency that offers a variety of programs in this area. You're going to want to listen closely to what she says and the programs that they have available. We've talked extensively about how there's up to $50,000 available in gateway cities like New Bedford and Fall River, Brockton, and beyond that people could take advantage of. And she'll tell you a little bit more about how to access those programs. We're also joined by Kevin Sullivan, who's from the City of New Bedford's Office of Housing and Community Development. They're a fantastic partner of PACE's and a fantastic partner of everyone in the community. They do a lot with first-time homebuyer programs as well and have some interesting perspectives to share. We're also joined by Lonell Walker. Peter Lonell Walker is a leader in a variety of capacities in our community, whether it's Third Eye or the communal space. Part of the reason he's joining our conversation tonight is I first met Lonell listening to what he had to say at another community event about becoming a first-time homebuyer himself, participating in some of these programs, and reminding us that the program shouldn't end, the support for folks shouldn't end when the transaction is closed and you become a first-time homebuyer, but often goes beyond that. Also joined by Amanda Glennon, who is with us from Neighborworks Housing Solutions. They have a new storefront location here in New Bedford, and they've been a tremendous partner to PACE and to many others in our region. They have housing programs that run the gamut, from rental assistance to first-time homebuyer support programs such as this one, and beyond. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience with our technical difficulties to get started. Our last panelist, I would be remiss to not introduce him. He will speak to you next, is State Representative in the 9th Bristol District, Christopher Markey. He represents portions of New Bedford and also Dartmouth. He recently spoke at a community event about the values of home ownership. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Representative Markey, to give us your perspective on the value of home ownership and your role in supporting those efforts. Representative?
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I think that, first off, I'm not the expert in it. All these other guys are. And I think that will be helpful to everybody who's participating tonight to get a sense of the programs that are out there. I always think that home ownership is one of the most important things to create wealth in your family. We can talk about all these other programs that help us, but home ownership is the way in which we get to the point where we feel that we can get to a point where you can pass something on, you can save money. And I look at it as, in a very personal way, as it's the way I've been able to put my kids through college. It's that the fact that I have equity in a home, that I've saved money through a mortgage when they were younger and going through the years. With all that said, how do you get there? And the biggest obstacle these days is the down payment. And I know from my own personal experience that I got $5,000 from my grandmother, who helped my wife and I put our first home and gave us assistance on our down payment of and kept the mortgage within reason and allowed us to be able to create some wealth and then sell that house and then move on. Now the question is that's one aspect of this process. And how I look at the housing issue that we have is it's simple supply and demand. There is not enough supply of affordable housing or housing in our area in which people can move on from rental property to affordable first-time home buyers and get the people who are in those homes moving on to another home. I think it's pretty reasonable to assume, and it's worked in previous generations, and there's some genius behind it, is you save a lot of money in your first house. You don't buy the most expensive house. You buy a house you can afford. You put in the equity. You earn the equity, and then you can take advantage of a good market at some point. You might have to be patient on that, but the economics are that once you can make some money off of that, and all the money that you're putting towards what you would put towards rent is now in a savings account. And that savings account is essentially your home. And we need to get people into homes so that the rental market will go down. And it's a very complex problem because we need to make these things affordable. And how do you do it when the zoning prevents that from happening? And when the zoning prevents it, it makes these lots huge and you can't afford it. And so the person who lives in this first-time home can't move out of that house and move up because they can't afford a 60,000 square foot lot in a town or a suburb. And that prevents that market of homes that are available, that are affordable for a first-time home buyer. That makes it more difficult for them to move up. And if they're not moving up, it's kind of just putting a dam or a cork in the whole process. And we need to make sure that those people can move out of their home, opening up rental homes for other individuals. I say this often is that if I didn't have that, I wasn't making really any money. I was an assistant DA making about $23,000 a year. My wife was working, not making much more. We decided that we wanted to buy a house. It was affordable. It was much cheaper than, it wasn't a big house. It was a three-bedroom home in which it was in a neighborhood that was a great neighborhood, but it wasn't the best neighborhood in the neighborhood that we always desired. But it got us to a point where we had enough equity, and we also had enough to move on to another home. And then that house was bought by another first-time home buyer. So it works. The process works. We just need to open that up. We need, as a legislature, I look at it as we tried to do it through zoning, making it easier for zoning laws to change in towns. We reduced it from a supermajority of the town to a majority. We've done other things throughout the legislature to try to open up the opportunity for towns to participate, but I think we have to do more because they are becoming more and more obstinate to it. But towns like Dartmouth, Fairhaven, Acushnet, Freetown, Lakeville, you can go to Somerset, Swansea, even all the way to Rehoboth, Seekonk. Those are the places where we need to start to really look at the opportunity to get people into their first-time home buyer. opportunity. And I think it's a little bit, it's much more accepting to the community when people know that there's people who are going to be buying a home and living in their home. But there's definitely a need to move the market from the rental priority to the priority of getting people into their first home so that they can save some money and then they can move forward. I hope we can do that in the legislature. I've been trying to do that and trying to talk to people. But I think one of the things that everyone could potentially do is keep pressure on us to make sure we keep putting money towards first-time home buyers and down payment assistance, which I think is an essential part of it. I'm happy to answer questions. I don't want to take too much time, but there are so many different programs. And right now, the biggest thing is New Bedford has an incredible amount of programs, but Dartmouth and Fairhaven and Acushnet don't necessarily have those types of things, where I think we need to really focus that energy towards so that people are moving out of these smaller homes and moving up, and opens up the door for these first-time homes to be available, or affordable homes to be available. I'm happy to answer any questions from the panel or anybody out there, or Josh, if you need me to follow up, I'm happy to do that as well. Hold on.
Josh, you're muted.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your support for this, valuable topic. I think, it does require a regional approach and a policy approach. So if you could stick around for a little bit, I think, folks that are just joining us, they're just getting connected. You haven't missed, anything yet. We're just getting started here, and Representative Markey is giving us an overview on how important it is to achieving your goals and achieving your dreams, to look at this path of homeownership and what that meant for him. If you have questions for Representative Markey or for any other panelists as we go, feel free to throw them in the chat. Toward the end, we will look at questions and direct them to the panelists. So please put them in there. Some of your questions that are coming in now, I think, will be addressed by other panelists. But Representative Markey gave a great overview, right, of the way that the state legislature funds these programs and ensures that there are mechanisms in place for people to achieve their goals of becoming first-time home buyers. With that, I want to shift gears a little bit. One of the things he did discuss was how people moving from renting to owning homes then frees up those apartments for other people to move into, which should help with this problem we have right now, where they're so scarce. Landlords are able to charge basically whatever they want, and they kind of get it, right? Carmen Mahill, our Housing Opportunity Center director here at PACE, has observed this firsthand. So Carmen, tell us, what have you seen over at the Housing Opportunity Center? What are you seeing with rents? How is the situation taking place in New Bedford? You're living it and seeing it every day.
It's been a challenge. We've seen it since the beginning of COVID. We've been doing the apartment list now for a few years since I've been here. And just to go online and look at these apartments is it's very disappointing. We started in the spring of COVID time. So we're March 2020, where you can get a 1-bedroom apartment for $750. You can get a 3-bedroom for about $900. And then summer 2021, 3 bedrooms already $1,200 and up. And I just looked at the list today, and the cheapest 3-bedroom apartment listed is $1,450 on Tinkham Street. And it's not, we get so many calls because people don't know what to do. They have people coming in, buying their properties, asking them to leave so they can renovate them, put them up. If you have a landlord who's willing to renew a lease, they're letting you know the rent is going to be $300-400 more than you're used to paying. So we are in desperate need of anything that's affordable, not just subsidized housing, because we are in desperate need of subsidized housing, but just something that the regular person who works 40 hours a week, minimum wage, has kids, trying to live their life, can afford to live in these apartments and not have to worry about having an eviction on their record or having to be homeless and looking for shelter for them and their family. So we're getting a lot of these phone calls. It's getting, now that the restrictions and a lot of the protections from COVID are falling off, we're getting a lot more calls every day.
Yeah, and I think the point you made about the rents is really important, and we've been talking about this for a long time, but many of us have sort of given ourselves a pat on the back for paying living wages, right, of $17 or $18 an hour. But if you do the math, even two people living together paying $17 or $18 an hour can't really put it together the way that they need to even afford rent. So if you're going to stretch your budget and try to work multiple jobs and everything anyway, perhaps you should at least explore owning your own home. So thank you, Carmen. We'll come back to you in a little bit because we know that you have some perspective to share as a recent first-time homebuyer yourself. So I think that'll be valuable to enter into the discussion. I want to introduce some of our next panelists now. We're going to go to Kevin Sullivan next, who is from the Office of Housing and Community Development in the city of New Bedford. They have long offered first-time homebuyer programs, and Kevin has some expertise in the community development world and in that first-time homebuyer world. So many of our panelists, many of our audience, Kevin, are starting to ask questions about, just sort of the overwhelm of the process and how to get down the road. So with your office, how do people usually engage with you, and how do you usually get that process started?
Yeah, thanks, Josh, for having me. We've been receiving a lot of calls that people are currently renting and now starting to look at trying to become home buyers. And if you're buying in the city of New Bedford, there's a lot of opportunities for assistance. I think for a lot of people probably on this stream here, probably one of the first things I would encourage everyone to do is to take a home buyer's class to really educate yourself about the home buying process. I mean, it's a great tool. You'll learn a lot. Buying a home has a language all of its own. If you've never engaged in this before, there's a lot to learn. And this will assist you in understanding conversations that will be happening while you're in the process, and you'll have a better idea of what questions to ask and what are the important questions you should be asking as part of this process. And if you're looking at doing, trying to figure whether home buying is right for you, I would also encourage you to engage in a housing counseling agency where you will get a little bit more of a one-on-one aspect to see where your finances are, your credit report. One of the biggest hurdles most people have is their credit. And they don't really find out until they go to a lender, they do the credit report, and then all these things come up on the report that need to be addressed before they can even proceed forward with even getting a pre-commitment letter from them. So I think those are the two critical steps that anyone who's looking to buy a home should undertake first and foremost. So if there's things that got to be corrected, you got to, increase your savings and reduce your spending. Those are ways that you can learn how to do that before you actually see a lender. Once you're ready to purchase a property or purchase a home, then you would engage with the lender to, see what you're going to qualify for as for a mortgage. Because the first thing a real estate person is going to ask you is, how much of a mortgage do you qualify for? So they know they're showing you the right houses. There's no sense looking at a house for $150,000 if the bank's only going to provide you with $350,000. So those are, initial key steps. But I'm going to kind of jump into the city's program here. We have provide assistance for people buying 1 to 3 family houses in the city of New Bedford. We kind of have, it's called the Neighborhood First program. There's basically 3 eligibility components to it. There's down payment and closing cost assistance, there's gap assistance, and there's rehab assistance. The down payment and closing cost assistance is up to $10,000. It's in the form of a 0% deferred loan for 10 years, meaning that you would make no payments on the loan during that 10-year period. And as long as you maintain the property as your primary residence for that 10-year period, we would forgive that loan. So you would pay nothing back on it. Now, if you sold the house within the 10-year period, you would have to pay us back. The gap assistance is additional funds that we can bring towards you to cover a shortfall in a mortgage. And to keep the math simple, if the bank qualified you for a $300,000 loan, but the house you're looking at is $320,000, we could provide an additional $20,000 on top of the $10,000 to make that cover that shortfall. So get you the $320,000 mortgage plus the down payment and closing cost assistance. And then the third component is the rehab program. So if the house had a roof that, it's not leaking, but, it's reached the end of its life cycle, those are things that we can help assist, take care of for the homeowner. So big key for our program is you have to meet our income eligibility. I'm going to probably send Josh a link to our webpage. So if anyone wants to go to it, you can get our program information. So, we're targeting people who are low to moderate income, 80% of median. So like a household of three, if your income is below 67,800, you would qualify for our program. And it goes up based on household size. So those numbers go up as the number of people living in the house increases. So we do have some, underwriting criteria outside of the income eligibility that you have to meet. So it's kind of a two-step process. First, we determine the eligibility of the client, or the applicant, I should say, and then we also have to approve the house. And for our program, the biggest thing is lead paint. Any house built prior to 1978 is presumed to have lead paint. So if the property has chipping and peeling paint, it needs to be addressed prior to us providing any assistance, which is extremely difficult in this market right now, given that most, there's very few houses and a lot of people interested in buying. So most sellers aren't interested in making any pre-sale repairs. They're, basically selling most properties as is. Let's see. I think, and you don't really, there's no application for us. We're going to get all the documents that we need to process your application from the lender, because, you're not going to get involved with our office until you're almost ready to sign the purchase and sales. So at that point, that's when the lender would contact us and we start receiving the loan application. They've pulled your credit. They have your pay stubs, your bank statements. They supply all that documentation to us. You won't have to come to our office and fill out a separate application and bring us all those documents. We'll get them through the lender. I think the most important thing to do is, if you think you're going to be using our program, is to notify the lender up front. Saying, I think I'm going to be buying in the city of New Bedford. I think I might be eligible for this program. Like I said, we do have a program description that, like I said, I'll share the link and then you can give to the lender and let them examine it. It has our contact information and they can contact me directly and I can explain any questions they have about the program, and they'll be better able to determine whether you're going to meet the qualifications of the program. So better know that early on before you doing the preliminary work. Then when you're getting to the end, thinking you're going to do a purchase and sales and find out you're not going to qualify for the assistance. I think that's kind of the broad brush of the program.
Kevin, that sounds great. I want to make sure, for our viewers too, we sort of situate this and understand, the city offers one program. So Kevin Sullivan works for the city's Office of Housing and Community Development, and we'll share links to how to get in touch with them. We're also going to, send some information out after the event. So keep an eye on the Facebook event group. I will share this link now at the bottom of your screen as well. So if you are kind enough to go to this website, perhaps while we're talking, perhaps after, you can share your information with us at paceinfo.org/subscribe. And then we can use the email list generated from this event to send some follow-up items to you, including Kevin's contact information and any other program information that we can share about what the City Housing and Community Development Office can do for you. Just some quick questions for you, Kevin. I was kind of monitoring the ones that were coming in. Is your program just New Bedford residents?
Yes, the neighborhood first. It's not for New Bedford residents. It's for people purchasing in New Bedford. You don't have to live in New Bedford in order to participate in the program.
That's a key distinction. And remember, everyone, we're going to have other panelists with different programs, so the guidelines may change depending on program. He did state the income guidelines, so we'll share those out as well, or some more information about how you can go about exploring that. But I think you said it was $67,000 for a household of three for the city's program.
Yeah, and
more or less.
Increases as you go up.
And if people call your office or set up an appointment with your office, you have folks that can speak a variety of languages. So you can explain this program in many ways, right?
Correct.
Okay, I think that's great. So we appreciate your presentation, Kevin. I'm sure there'll be some follow-up questions. I'm imagining that there's a few questions we'll want to ask all of our panelists that offer programs. So, your office is New Bedford only, but Neighborworks may not be, or MassHousing may not be. So we'll transition now to our next panelist, which is Goretti Joachim, who is from MassHousing, and they have their own program that works in some similar ways. So Goretti, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I know you shared some slides with us. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and talk about the program, and let me know when you'd like me to put those up for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh. So first of all, thank you, PACE, for putting something together like this. The need for education and getting the word out about the various programs that are available is crucial. I heard Representative Markey talk about his experience in buying a house. Mine was very similar. But purchase prices, my first house was $103,500. We've come a long way from there. And with that being said, down payment assistance, it was pretty easy for my grandparents to sort of give me a down payment. It's a little harder to get a down payment saved these days because of purchase prices obviously on the rise and the lack of affordable housing. So we all understand that. And the purpose of today, or to talk a little bit more, is to just inform you of what's available. So I work for MassHousing. I've been there for 17 years. Who we are is we're the state's affordable housing lender. We're located on 1 Beacon Street in Boston. We were actually started by the state government, but we're not funded by the state government. We provide a variety of different funding sources to cities. And in my role, it is for first-time home buyers and working with the city of New Bedford and many of the local lenders and other cities and municipalities. So, I'm here today to just talk a little bit about our programs, how you can find out more information about our programs. And, our motto is, yes, you can, and we're going to try to help you. A couple of things that we offer is that we offer sustainable and affordable loan products. So the interest rate is not going to change. They're 30-year fixed rate loans. You can budget for that. Attending a first-time home buyer class is crucial to getting a MassHousing loan. And it's important because it teaches you how to budget. It teaches you the difference of buying a single family home versus a multifamily home or a condo. And so, having a sustainable and affordable loan product is important. All of our loans are serviced right here in Massachusetts. So your mortgage is a 30-year mortgage. That you don't want it to get sold off to Texas and California and somewhere else in the country where you might not be able to talk to a representative who knows what's going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we have no hidden fees, no hidden surprises. You can budget for our loan products. We also offer what's called unemployment payment protection. So if you unexpectedly lose your job, we will help cover your mortgage payment. There's no repayment back. On all of our conventional loans, there's actually our mortgage insurance is at a reduced cost. And with some of our programs, we pay the mortgage insurance on your behalf. So that's another reason why we help folks get in. And then also, the more important thing is down payment assistance. We survey and we work with realtor boards throughout the Commonwealth. And one of the things that we heard over and over again, and also from first-time home buyers, was the lack of opportunity to save for a down payment assistance. So, many folks come to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They go to our great schools and universities. They graduate, but they can't always purchase here. They can't always buy here. So being able to offer down payment assistance is crucial to, one of the reasons that we feel it's advantageous and a benefit of getting a MassHousing loan. As I said, we're not funded by tax dollars, but we don't direct originate. So you wouldn't be able to come to me and say, Goretti, could you take my mortgage application? Can we meet next week? It doesn't quite work that way. We partner up with over 120 lenders throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They can offer a variety of different programs. They offer different interest rates and have different closing costs. So when you're talking to someone about obtaining a MassHousing loan or a City of New Bedford loan, you want to make sure that you're working with a lender that you feel comfortable with, a person who's going to be responsive and who understands these programs, because they are more complex. So we do partner with 130 lenders, like I said, and the best way to find out who those lenders are and what our programs are that we offer is by visiting our website, which is masshousing.com. And that website obviously is in English, but it's also available in Portuguese, Spanish, and in Chinese. So please visit that website. And the importance of visiting the website is not only to get information and to hear all about the programs and features that we offer, but also because we have some great programs that are coming out soon. The American Rescue Plan, or ARPA. MassHousing has been allocated funds from the federal government. So we're going to have more programs that are coming out soon that if you can stay connected with MassHousing, you'll be able to find out about those programs. So I've just given you a little bit of background of who we are. And Josh, if you wouldn't mind, maybe we can get started with some of the down payment assistance.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So again, I'm just going to go over quickly our down payment assistance programs. And I just want to premise that these are all the programs we offer. It doesn't really mean much to you as a consumer or to someone who's listening in. But I point this out because we offer a lot of different programs for a variety of different borrowers or potential first-time home buyers. So depending on your income, depending on the property type that you're purchasing, depending if you're buying in a gateway community or not. So Representative Markey mentioned that there's some down payment assistance available if you're buying in a city. That is true. But there's also down payment assistance if you're a first-time home buyer buying in a community like Dartmouth or Westport or Fairhaven. It may not be the same amount, but there is some down payment assistance available as well. So these are just some of the products that we offer. And to just let you know that when you're talking to someone and you're interested in a MassHousing loan or down payment assistance, you want to make sure that you're working with someone who knows all of our programs and participates in all of our programs. Next slide, please. So our down payment assistance, WFA 3.0, is the program that is available for single family, condos, and 2-unit properties. It is for first-time home buyers, and there are specific income limits that apply. In this particular case, we are offering up to $50,000 for folks purchasing in gateway communities. There is a 0% interest rate repayment on this product, and it is amortized over 30 years. And that is our Workforce Advantage 3.0 down payment assistance. For the remainder of borrowers who may not qualify for Workforce Advantage 3.0, we also offer, next slide, please, our 15-year down payment assistance. And this is for the remainder of our products. It's either 5% of the sales price or $15,000, whichever is less. There is a 2% repayment. And these loans are paid off and due upon the sale or the refinance of the first lien. These income limits go much higher. We go as high as 135% in certain areas. And to just give you a benchmark of what that is, in Bristol County, it's $134,460, and in Plymouth County, $179,955. So the income limits are pretty high, and we just increased those income limits in July. Next slide, please. This is a list of all of our gateway cities. So in these communities, you're eligible for down payment assistance at a higher amount, the $50,000 that we talked about, or $15,000 if you don't qualify for the Workforce Advantage. Next slide, please. Coming soon, we're hoping by next month, ARPA. So American Rescue Plan Act, it is federal government allocated to many communities and through the state, and both MassHousing and MHP have been allocated funds. It is up to $50,000 for borrowers earning 100% of AMI or lower, and then for those earning above 100%, up to 135, they could qualify for $35,000. The ARPA funds or the grant can be used in conjunction with our down payment assistance, as well as the City of New Bedford, as well as Equity Builder Program and other down payment assistances that are available. It is to be used for 5% of the down payment assistance. It can be used to pay your upfront mortgage insurance, which enables you to qualify for more. It can pay for all your closing costs, and it can also pay for points to reduce your interest rate. And that's huge because interest rates are on the rise. So that will allow more folks to have an affordable interest rate. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick example of someone who earns $86,000. They're living in New Bedford. They're buying in Brockton. It's a single family. They're eligible for the ARPA funds, and they are also eligible for our Workforce Advantage 3.0. And I thought if I put this together, it shows how much money is on the table or how much funds are available, soon to be available for a first-time home buyer and the potential that's there. So calculating it all out with a Workforce Advantage 3.0, because they're buying in a gateway community, they can get 10% or $50,000. So 10% of the purchase price at $380,000 would be $38,000. The ARPA funds, they're eligible for 50 because they're below the 100% income. So the total sources that are available to this particular example, and again, this is a sample transaction and only for purposes of illustration. So they would be eligible for $88,000. The use of funds, when we calculate it all out, we're using 10% from MassHousing at $38,000. We're taking 5% for the ARPA, for the DPA, because only 5% can be used towards the purchase. But you could also add in closing costs. You could add in points to buy down the rate, and all of these things could be added into the $57,000. So this is just an example to kind of show you some numbers and put the numbers on paper. Next slide, please. So in closing, I just want to say thank you for having this. I think it's an important topic. I would ask all of you to stay connected with MassHousing so that you can hear about new programs, especially the down payment assistance and the ARPA funds that are coming our way.
Goretti, thank you for a fantastic presentation. I want to give it a moment for it to sink in, just how incredible the programs are. When we had sort of put together some of the promotional materials and looking at what you'd shared with us, we had put, you're eligible for up to $50,000 in down payment assistance. But I think the ability to stack potentially multiple programs on top of each other makes it even more valuable. So I think that's fantastic. It was alluded to in the speaker before you that, often the difficulty for folks is coming up with the down payment to begin with, right? So when you're paying $1,800 a month in rent and funds are scarce and you're just trying to get the rent paid, it's very difficult to squirrel away enough money to come up with a serious down payment. So I think tapping into the existence of some of these programs is really important. So we'll circle back. There are a lot of questions I think that you can help us with. I think folks will probably need a little bit of assistance in navigating the path to finding a lender that works with MassHousing programs rather than going straight to MassHousing. So there is some work to do to connect the dots in between. Next, I will go to Amanda Glennon, who might be able to help us connect some of those dots.
Hey, Josh, can I just jump in for one thing? Because I think it's kind of interesting. As I was listening to Goretti, I was, you can get the mortgage calculator on your phone. I was going, and I put in a $300,000 30-year fixed at 5.5%. I mean, I don't know if it will be 5.5%, but the mortgage payment for a monthly payment is $1,700. So If you're paying $1,900 now, granted you're responsible for taxes and upkeep and other things, but in the end, it's comparable if you can get that type of assistance for the down payment and you can bring your and get your financing down as much as you can. That's the type of difference we can make if we do this down payment assistance.
That's a really great point, Chris, and I think it's important to stress that because we're talking about you're paying this rent every month that goes to a landlord and you never really see it again, right? And then you move out of that apartment in 2 years or 3 years, then you start all over somewhere else. the difference with the house, even if it's a little more expensive and you can figure out a way, every month you're making that payment and the balance of your loan is going down to the point where the balance of your loan is zero. And so, even though you're writing a check every month of $1,700, you're sort of writing it to yourself in a way, because you're keeping it just in the value of your house. So very important point. Some of the questions that have come up in the chat are, how do I get into a first-time homebuyer class? How do I get into a program like that? And I think Amanda can help us. So she's with, again, Neighborworks Housing Solutions, I'm sorry, agency serving all of southeastern Massachusetts and a great partner to us here at PACE. Amanda, I know you have a variety of programs, including first-time homebuyer classes, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we have a really comprehensive first-time homebuyer program that we're very proud of. The way to encourage folks and to enable folks to become first-time homebuyers, most importantly, is you need to get the education. There's a lot of mystery in buying a home. It's something that everybody wants to accomplish, but to get the steps to know how, that's what we really support you through. So it's not just come to the first-time homebuyers class, maybe talk to a lender and enjoy trying to buy a house. We're with you from determining if homeownership is affordable for you, what's your affordability like, all the way through to post-closing. What does it take to maintain a household? So it goes through all those steps. We're also really lucky to have some wonderful partners in the community that come and speak on our classes, loan officers who offer different loan products, local real estate agents, as well as HUD certified housing counselors come on every class to make themselves available to answer questions to you as a learner and to make sure that you get all the information that you need. The last part that is, I think, the most dedicated part of it is that everybody who goes through our first-time homebuyer education program gets one-on-one counseling. So once you've completed the education requirement, you're going to get matched with a housing counselor that's going to have a really personalized, dedicated conversation specific to your home buying journey. It's different for everybody. And people who join our classes, not everybody's at the same step. Some folks are ready to close and some folks are just thinking, man, I'd really like to buy a house. I'd like to stop paying this huge rent. And no matter what step you're at, we're going to get you assigned to somebody and get you into a great group that's going to help get you there and get you the resources and down payment assistance options, different type of loan products. I'm going to share some links with Josh so that he can share them with you guys. Tons of information available online about our classes, about what we offer and how it works. And we're glad to talk if you have any questions. If you want to get more information, I'll share some links.
Amanda, thank you. That sounds really fantastic. I think, taking an approach that meets people, with wherever their circumstances are, the reality is, I think a lot of folks that are joining us tonight can begin this process, and starting with Neighborworks seems like a good option for them. I think learning maybe early on, perhaps you aren't a candidate for this right now, but 6 months down the road you might be, or a year down the road you might be. So here are the things that you need to do that. So one of the questions we've seen is about credit. I don't have credit, I have no credit history, or I might have a credit history and it's not as great as I'd like it to be. What are often the answers for folks that come to you with those kind of problems?
I think it's like more personalized for everybody. We do also, and it's an option for all of our first-time home buyers too, we do have a financial coaching program where we can help you get information about your credit score and tips and tricks about budgeting and what you could potentially do to increase your score. That's a service that we're also proud to offer to anybody who's in need of that. It's a big obstacle, but I think as everybody on this call knows that there is something for everybody out there, as long as we can get you to where you need to be credit-wise, and we are here to help you get there. We'll share the link about the credit program as well. I know it's a big topic.
Yeah, I think that's an important one for folks, and we've had people reach out even before the session. I'll say one that I think is kind of an interesting story. We've all heard folks that have resettled in New Bedford from Afghanistan, who were displaced over there, who were very helpful to the United States, and are allies of ours who've resettled here and would like to embark on the path of home ownership, but have no credit history because they're new to the country. So I think that's a unique path. I think others may have different stories and different things that bring them to the table, but it would be possible nonetheless. Now, how about income levels? What would you say someone, what do you say? We have some folks in the chat who are saying, I don't think I make enough money to be a homeowner. And I think, if we're being bluntly honest, there is a certain level where, it is out of reach, unfortunately. So how do you kind of tease that out when you're talking to people? Some folks need to, maybe enhance their job skills and find other opportunities to build their income, but others might be ready now and don't realize it. But how do you navigate that?
I think it's very important in that one-on-one conversation where determining affordability really comes in. You hear a little bit about it in the education portion of the class, but with our housing counselors, when you get matched up at the end, that conversation's much more personal. They're going to talk to you about your income, about your spending habits, where you could potentially save money, what you could potentially do to increase your income, because, for some folks, it's going to happen in a few weeks. And for some folks, it's going to happen in a few years, but that doesn't mean that it's any less important. So we're going to help you get the tools to, if you need to increase your income, here's potentially what you could do. If you need to build savings, we're going to match you up with something that does that. I think it's different for everybody. Everyone thinks that it's out of reach for them, but some folks, you're closer than you think. So we're glad to help you get there any way that we can. And with our one-on-one counseling, we'll help you get there. We'll point you in the right direction for sure.
Thank you, Amanda. We just put in the comments too, we want to plug some upcoming Neighborworks events. So Neighborworks does have some group education classes on first-time homebuyer that are coming up. July 16th, Thursday, July 28th, and Thursday, August 11th. They have classes 2 times a month and are available fully online. And they have some other programs. So if you're a small business or an entrepreneur and you're looking for ways to put that together, they have some programs in that area too. We will share that in the communication we put out after the event as well. So please go to paceinfo.org/subscribe. We'll make sure to put it there. We'll also post some of this content that we have as a follow-up in the description or in the discussion on Facebook if you're on that platform. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to work on a number of things to get all the information out, because the information from all of our panelists so far has been so good and so rich. We want to make sure that it gets into the right hands. Amanda, great program. Great. Thank you for being here. And I do think a lot of it does rely on those one-on-one relationships formed between housing counselors and the folks who are experienced in navigating the process. Jumping ahead a little bit, Peter Lionel Walker is with us, and he's spoken really well about how becoming a first-time home buyer and getting the keys to your house isn't the end of the process. So we're taking everybody a step ahead to be prepared in a way that he might say he wasn't necessarily. So you've got through the process. You contacted Neighborworks Housing Solutions or another first-time home buyer provider. They hooked you up. You got into the right relationship with a lender. You took advantage of one of Goretti's MassHousing loans and got all kinds of down payment assistance. Or you connected with the city's Office of Housing and Community Development and were eligible for one of their programs. You've gotten through that process so far. You found a house. You settled on it. Now what? It behooves you to start thinking about that today, right? Because we're telling you the road to that is shorter than you might think it is. So Peter, tell us what, first, I guess, when did you go through a process like this one? Is it similar to what's being discussed? And what did you learn from that process? How was that for you and your family?
First off, thank you all for having me here and being a part of this important discussion, especially as a person and a member of the BIPOC community. One thing I want to jump on before I even get into the context of that, I want to talk about the psychological barrier, right? Because we are talking about people who, especially if you're coming from marginalized, low-income areas, there is a psychological barrier there. And I went through that process when we even started having a conversation about having a home or it being an option. It felt insurmountable. So I just want you to understand that when you first come in contact with that concept of trying to see yourself owning a home, take a deep breath and know that it all starts like everything else. You have to take steps. And it doesn't matter if everybody's path is different. It doesn't matter if yours is a 10-step or yours is 100 steps, as long as you're taking those steps and have enough dexterity to keep going, you will reach your goals, just like any other goals that you have in life. So I just want to start there. because that was a huge factor in us completing the process. When you are going through the process, you will be hearing a lot of language and things that you might not be familiar with. And even if if you feel like somebody like Josh mentioned earlier, which I really appreciate you mentioning that, and you may not be ready monetarily, but you do need to get ready, and you can get prepared mentally. So when that opportunity does present itself, you actually have an understanding of some of the language that you'll be hearing, right? And I'll tell you one important aspect of it, and I'm pretty sure I'll probably see some smiles here, especially when you get into the underwriting phase of this process. Again, when you go to your first time home buyers class, you'll be sure as soon as you walk in to start to understand what the underwriting process is, right? And they'll go over it. But now let's fast forward to after you, like Josh said, you've gotten everything done. You've taken your 10 or 100 steps, whatever you needed to do to get yourself secured into a home. Well, let's give you a story, right? It was the first winter I got into. We purchased our home through the Whale program. For people who are not familiar with Whale, it is the historic. I forgot the exact. Help me, Josh.
Waterfront Historic Area
League. Yes. Yes. But Whale was the program that we went through, and basically they focus on restoring historic homes in the area, places of blight, things of that nature. Now, I do want to touch on this real quick from a community dynamic. Anytime we're trying change is happening, it can be uncomfortable, and your feedback is important in that process, because sometimes we as people that work in these spaces can only learn how to better service you by you having the ability to have a dialogue over a diatribe and how we go about that process, right? Because we want to make the process easier, more accessible, all the things to make sure that we can create a better path for people to be able to be in position. But anyway, I digress. So we got the home through Whale. We move in. First winter hits. I said, oh, wow, I lived in housing my whole life, just for people to have context. I'm a first generation homeowner, not just a first time home owner as well. My family didn't have it. So I do come from that background where it felt insurmountable. You didn't have it. Now I'm in this home and I'm happy, I'm gleeful, but wait, there's more. And you have to understand the context that this is yours now. Living in housing, maintenance will come shovel your snow. Maintenance will change that light. Maintenance will handle those things around your house. So I like to say, I've said this to Josh at the Whale meeting and many of the meetings that we go into, how can we talk about the post purchase of a house and how we can support folks that are first time home buyers with things like understanding how to repair things. You see me wearing a youth build hat. There's, so I think getting our kids involved in these kind of programs early is important so they can be engaged and understand the mechanics of what it's even like to own a home. I'm just now getting a green thumb, and trust me, it's not even close to where it needs to be, but it's learning those different things and aspects, and it's okay with being to build with other homeowners to learn those things. But a lot of the times when we're talking about people who they're not first-time homeowners, they've had their families used to owning homes. There's a lot of historical context there and knowledge there that they can lean on in people in their family. Whereas a lot of people from BIPOC community who might not have that luxury do not have access to resources that can help them build and understand how to maintain a home. It's not hard. It's not the end of the world, but it is important to know for the sustainability of your home and for the value of your home. And another thing I want to touch on real quick, I would be remiss without talking about this. So especially for the BIPOC community, in a large way, we've been trying to work on home ownership in our community since redlining. And, in a lot of ways, we still have a lot of things that are happening there that can be barriers to access. But the more we know, the better prepared we can be. We're not that better off than we were in the 1960s. And we do, and the biggest demographic that's taken the hardest hit throughout this time is actually young African-American individuals and BIPOC people in the community, especially from the 35 to 44 year range. It fell 45% in 1990 and 33% in 2015 from people buying homes. And then obviously the pandemic only exacerbated some of these issues. It changed and fluctuated costs in our areas, things of that nature. Again, hearing things that may feel too large, you have to get comfortable with that. You have to embrace the unknown and embrace the data, because it's not a barrier to you getting your goal accomplished. It's just information so you can adjust to your method when you're going about owning a home. So again, just be focused on taking one step at a time, taking a deep breath. And if you hear no, it's just like anything else. You're going to hear a bunch of no's before you hear a yes, and you have to keep chopping at the wood in order to knock this tree down. Even though I love trees, don't knock a tree down, don't do that. But, you know, it's an expression. So, you know, just take your time, take a deep breath, talk to other people. If you need folks to talk to, we actually have a community of us that we all talk behind the scenes, especially in the BIPOC community, about what it's like to own a home. We give each other advice about insurances, things of that nature. Again, as they said, when I went through the city put money on top of our down payment assistance along with WAIL, which was amazing. There were some stipulations there, but they're common sense stipulations, like we have to be in the home for 15 years, meaning we're not going to utilize this program to just flip it. They actually want us to create a generational home for our family, right? Which I think is important. Now, does that feel like a restriction? It may be, but you also need to understand and utilize that 15 years of time to actually learn what it means to be a homeowner, even if you want to get into the space of becoming a landlord eventually. But you must, as my wife just put in the comments, stay persistent and be fearless. The same kind of fear you have in fighting for any other form of equity in your life, you have to have the same kind of form of fearless nature and tenacity when it comes to getting into a home, but also learn how to make sure that you're staying within the context of a dialogue over a diatribe, because people are trying to learn how to work with you, and they're also trying to learn your unique situation, because no two situations are really the same. And the biggest advice I can give you, again, is reach out to folks like PACE, reach out to programs, and do not hesitate to get the knowledge early. I had a conversation with my friend as we started this program, and we talked about, him attending and watching this program. And the first thing he said to me is, I'm just not there in life yet. And I said, but your mind can be. You know, we have to see our dreams all the way through, every little finite detail. And it's weird because, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but this is the house that I envisioned when I had to start envisioning where my life was going to land me and the steps that I needed to take to get there. And we really actually manifested it. But manifestation requires work as well on your part. Now let's touch on the biggest one in the room. That was probably the hardest part for us. When it comes to credit, you have to start getting financial discipline about your spending habits. That's one of the biggest aspects of this. And that's one of the things that no matter what person you go to repair your credit, you are 110% in control of. And that's one of the things that you have to have the strongest discipline about, is understand. And you'll start to really, like, when you get into a home, you really start to understand budgeting. You really start to understand property values, these properties taxes. It opens your mind to a whole new world of equity, things that are things that we hear, but we don't have practice and utility with in a lot of cases when people come from these communities. So again, it's about being able to use that information and utility and securing yourself in a way where the information and preparation is getting you strong enough, willed enough, and determined enough, and disciplined enough to actually follow through with your steps. But again, I cannot stress enough that the onus is on you. At the end of the day, the programs are here. There is no lack of resources. And again, this programming is wonderful that PACE put together, but the onus is on you at the end of the day to make sure that you're tenacious enough, you're read up enough, and it doesn't cost much. The information's all over the internet, and there's plenty of resources to get the information. But again, I don't want you to feel discouraged if you're watching this and you heard numbers today that make you feel like you're outside of that parameter. You will be there one day. I believe in you, and I want you to believe in you enough to get mentally prepared for when you do enter that chapter.
Peter, thank you so much. I think you summarized it very well. I think it's spot on, and you're right. So if you aren't there today, there are things that we can do to help you get on the road to get there. It doesn't mean you don't want to be part of this discussion today, so you know when to turn on that road, right? When the GPS is going to tell you to take a right or take a left or go straight. So I think that's an important context to understand. I also know, doing this work for a living, I still sometimes can't follow the vocabulary of our panelists. So underwriting, ARPA has come up a few times. Some of Goretti's presentation is very, very great, and I think the MassHousing program is extremely strong. But looking at some of those spreadsheets, if that, like me, if that gives you a headache to look at that and go, I don't know how to make sense of exactly what this means for me, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not ready. That doesn't mean you can't be a homeowner today or tomorrow or next year. Don't be discouraged by those things. You just have to kind of stick with it and ask questions. You see how patient the panelists are here today. They're taking time out of their evening on a summer night where they have a million other things they could be doing but they're here. And I think you're respecting that and appreciating that, because we've had the number of attendees here solid for the last hour and a half. I do want to touch in real quick with Carmen. So Carmen's also a recent first-time home buyer, longtime renter, and does this for a living at our Pace Housing Opportunity Center. Carmen, in the what has it been now, 6 months or 8 months or so?
Yeah, almost a year.
So how has that experience been for you? And is it any different than you anticipated, or like how did that process go?
I was listening to everything and laughing and shaking my head because yes, it's all true. It's great to have a program like Neighborworks that will help you. You can call them with questions. It could feel discouraging at times from the very beginning to the end. I had to work on my credit. That was an issue for me, but I worked at it and I did it. When they came back and told me this is what you can afford, I was like, I can't afford that. Are you serious? And they were like, no, you can. You just have to do these steps. So you have to work at it to do it. Stressful to find a house. You go to an opening and you have 2 days to put in an offer, and then they come back and tell you, sorry, you can't have this house. And you go and you do the same thing over and over and over again. But you keep at it. You stay persistent. And through it all, it took us a few months, but after all the no's and me telling my kids, that's just not our home, we finally found our forever home, and we're in it, and we're working it, and we're figuring everything out and learning all the language. And it's the simplest things, like being able to do my own yard work brings me so much pride because it's mine. You know what I mean? So it's a struggle, and if you can dream it, you can do it. You just have to work at it, and you have to put in the work to get to where you can get there. If I can do it, you can do it. I lived in my apartment for 16 years and was happy living in that apartment. And someone came, bought the house, and was going to raise my rent by 50, 60%. And I said, instead of paying that person's mortgage, I'm going to pay my own. And I worked and I did it. So take advantage of all this information. Call out if you need any kind of help. If you want guidance, we're all here to help you. The links are here. Sign up for PACE, subscribe, and we'll get you whatever you need. We're here at the office, and there's help for you. Just seek it, work it, and you can do it.
Thank you, Carmen. I think that's great advice and a good experience that you had and can share. And I think many of our panelists have similar stories. So while we're all here talking about it and we're being broadcast, and that's supposed to mean that we're very important people, we're people just like everybody else, and we weren't sure how to put it together or what process to go through, and I'm sure still have uncertainty about exactly what it is we're doing. So the folks that are watching, the only difference is, maybe someone pushed us over the hurdle or answered a question that we have, and that's what we're hoping to do for you today. So our panelists have been very generous with their time. I think we'll take the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, try to get some of the questions that have come up in the chat. Some of them we've hit while we're talking, but I'm going to go through them and sort of select some. Some might be better tailor-made for certain panelists, but I'll definitely open up the floor to any panelist that sees fit. So we've seen a lot of credit score related questions. So one here from Alfredo about credit score. For those of you offering programs in this area, is there a minimum credit score? Does it depend on other factors? We know that Amanda is going to tell us that a lot of it's individual based, so some things may be for others, but is there sort of a general rule of thumb of where you're looking for people to be?
So it depends on if they're purchasing a single family, if they're purchasing a multifamily, if they're purchasing a condo. And our credit score range, depending if it's an FHA loan or a conventional loan product. FHA has a lower FICO score. So, you could go as low as 640 and be approved. In general, the credit scores that we typically see are in the mid 600s to 700.
Thank you. Any other panelists wish to chime in on that? Does that sound about right with you all as well?
Josh,
yeah.
Just for the city's down payment program, we do not have a minimum credit score. We use whatever that credit score that the lender is using. All that we require is that any delinquent or charge-off accounts either be paid off or an established payment plan has been created. in order to receive our assistance.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. And I think, it probably goes without me even mentioning this now, but the availability of apps like Credit Karma, your ability to get your credit report online for free once a year or twice a year, I think those are valuable programs for folks. So if you haven't taken advantage of some of them, it might be worth getting a peek under the hood and seeing where you're at with your credit score. I know signing up for that Credit Karma app was helpful to me just to see the things that make your score go up and the things that make your score go down. So you're mindful of the fact that some of it doesn't make sense, right? You need to have credit. You need to use it. You can't use too much of it. You need to pay it. Don't pay it too quickly. There's some tricks of the trade you need to get into if you want to boost your score quickly. I'm sure Amanda's team will help you with some of that if you reach out to them. There's a lot of other stuff that's free and available online. Of course, you want to make sure you're in the right place and getting the right information, but I think that's a valuable place to take a look.
And to attest, if I can jump in, just to jump
please.
off of Kevin, their staff, because that was directly who we dealt with from the city, was absolutely incredible. Again, I can't express enough that anytime we had a question, their staff did a great job in breaking things down to us. They can tell that, again, you can tell a first-time home buyer, you could tell where they are in their knowledge, and they were not hesitant to make the process easier for us and advocate it for us in a lot of things that we needed done to make the process smoother as well. So I can say for sure that Kevin and his team do the work that is needed. And understanding each program is going to have unique, different criteria and services that they can apply to you. So you have to find that one that fits your unique situation. And a lot of the times these programs are not competitive in that way. Like if I don't have it, I'm not going to send you to someone else. They will send you to someone else that can work with you.
Of the programs that are being provided here, do you all have staff that speak a variety of languages so folks can reach out and they'll be connected and be able to speak someone in their home language? Is that, I'm seeing nodding. I'll just take that as a yes. Okay, so everybody's welcome here. We have seen some questions come through about immigration status or social security number. Is it a requirement of your programs to be a citizen or have a social security number as opposed to an ITIN, or is status relevant to your programs? Kevin, do you know about yours?
We don't require citizenship status or, I haven't really run into a question with someone using a tax ID number per se. So, but citizenship is not a requirement for it.
Goretti?
We adhere to GSE guidelines. That just means Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and not to make it complex, but there is a list of the approved requirements. So it varies.
Okay, depends on program.
Correct.
And Amanda, Neighborworks eligibility for your programs is?
To sign up for education, you wouldn't need it.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for other questions. If you have questions that are still coming up or bubbling up, please put them in the chat. We will see if we can get to them in the next 5 minutes or so. As a reminder, please remember to sign up for PACE communications so that we can send a follow-up to this event right to your inbox. A lot of information, and even if it's just contact information for the different agencies that presented here today, on top of the wealth of information that they shared with us, we will distribute that that way. Looking for another question.
Can I be a pain in the butt? I saw a really good question. That was one that my mother didn't know.
Yeah, flag it.
We live. Yeah. Can I buy a house and be on Section 8? That's the question I saw, and I'm posing it to the panel because I didn't realize that there were programs where you could work into your Section 8, but I don't know if that's changed, and I think that's an important question, because especially for a lot of low-income families that might currently be on Section 8.
So is the question, can you use a voucher?
If I'm on Section 8, what does that look like? Can I buy a house?
There is a program through, and you can find out more information on mass.gov. It's not a program necessarily by MassHousing per se, but we do can provide the end financing. But it's a from what I understand of the program, it's a intense, more beyond home buyer education, but there is a Section 8 voucher program that can be used in conjunction with home ownership in the state of Massachusetts.
Fantastic. I think for folks not navigating a specific program, it just becomes a question of managing the housing cost jump, right? So if you were paying a subsidized rent, say $600 a month or so, and now you're going into that $1,700 a month mortgage, you might be able to get a lot of the down payment assistance to make it more manageable. But as Goretti's saying, there's probably even better options out there in certain programs. So I think that's very, very good. I see another question here. What if you're married and one person's already previously owned a house and one has not? Do you still qualify for first-time home buyer? I would take this and probably broaden it. You know, maybe you bought a house 20 years ago. What does that mean for you now? Are you disqualified from these programs? What do you guys think about that?
So for MassHousing, we say that you cannot have owned and occupied in the last 3 years. That's the definition of a first-time home buyer.
That's the same definition for us.
Fantastic. So owned and occupied a home in the last 3 years.
Yes.
So that's a fairly short window. If you know, so I would say the term for our listening audience, the term first-time home buyer is almost a little misleading, because you may have owned a home before, you may have bought a home before, but you'd be eligible again for a program like this one. So we hope that folks will keep that in mind. Chris, I haven't asked you a question in a while, and you've been kind enough to stay on with us. What are you thinking? What are you hearing? So seeing it from a legislator's perspective, funding programs like this one and having these discussions at the state level, to see them in practice in your own community, have you learned anything new?
Well, first off, I don't know a quarter of what these people know, so that's why I haven't responded. That might be the wisdom of getting old, is to keep your mouth shut when you don't know anything. So, but the one thing I can take away from this is it's something that Peter and Carmen both said, and they talked about, and I kind of felt the same way. I actually, the funny story of my house is I wasn't much more than $103,000 for our first house either. But the guy next door to me had a garden, and he was really good at it. And I watched him do it the first year, and the second year I said, all right. So like either the next day or 5 or 6 hours later, I would do the exact same thing he did. Whatever it was, I just copied it, and I figured out how to do it. And we had zucchini, tomatoes, beans, everything else in this little garden. So, and you got to remember that, you know, in the end, and this is something I would get into, is what Peter and Carmen were talking about. This is if you get a house, this is your little piece of the earth. You all the way down. You own all the way down. So it's like, this is your little piece. And it sounds corny to talk about that way, but it should mean something. And I think when you have that privilege, that responsibility comes, and you see how, as Peter was talking, I mean, the ability to fix things, the idea that, you know, all of a sudden you're going to go to Ace and pick up all this stuff. You got to pick up a shovel. You got to pick up a rake because there's going to be leaves. You got to do all these things that you never thought of before. And then eventually, you know, 4 or 5 years into it, you get the power tools. So, you know, you gradually move up as the responsibilities come up or the messes get bigger. But it's something also that when you talked about responsibility is it, you know, the idea is you're going to have a family, and it teaches your kids the responsibility of what you're doing and how you provide for them. And you passes on a generation, and they watch what you do and the sacrifices you make to get to that point. That's what's really important. And there's this sense of pride when you walk through the door and, you know, all of a sudden there's a chip on the door. Okay, we got to paint it. We got to do these things to make it look good because of that sense of pride. Our hope is that people take advantage of it. You hear all these programs. We need to get it out more, I think, is the biggest thing. Is I think there are people who would fall into these categories that would do it. It takes work, though. And I know people are working more and getting paid less and all of that. But in the end, if you really want something, you got to work at it. I'm a big sports guy. I use the analogies. You know, NBA players still practice every day. Baseball players still take batting practice before every game. They keep at it. They work at it. And you got to do it that way. You got to keep a track of your budget. You got to keep a track of what's coming in. You got to save some for when something goes bad, when the hot water heater goes. You got to make sure you have the money for it. You got to all of these little things that it just makes you more and more responsible. But it's not just about you being responsible. It's about you teaching your kids the responsibility of it. And it's a huge, huge part of growing up and having a community, because, one of the things that's great about it is, you help your neighbor out. That's, I think about it, and neighbors work, and it's like, yeah, that's like everyone helps out each other, and your kids see that and your family see that. And then your community gets stronger in a tighter bond. And that, again, what are the consequences of that is that you have a safer neighborhood. You have people watching out for people. You have people who trust people. You got people who rely on when something goes bad or something, to celebrate with. That's when we talk about neighborhoods, and it sounds corny, but it makes the world a better place. Is the easiest way to say it. So I'm all for trying to encourage it. I hope more people have the ability to purchase a home. And I think when you have that pride, it makes a difference in your own self-esteem and everything else. So obviously, and Peter will attest, and I can attest, and Carmen and anyone who owns a home, there's instant stress, but it's a good stress. With that, I don't have much more to add, but I just think if we can try to promote these programs, there are so many that Kevin's agency deals with, and can at least the home industry program and all these other ones that are available. And it's great because in New Bedford, you can do it, but in Dartmouth, you can't. It would be great to have more younger families in Dartmouth and in Fairhaven and in Westport. And we got to figure out a solution to that. And part of that is, again, having people come into the community that benefit from a program like this, become the neighbors of people who end up going to a town meeting and voting and saying, it's a great program. These are great people. We want more of this. And it takes time, but it's worth the effort for all of us to do this in every town, every suburb, every rural area to try to get this done.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you. I think point's well made. Taking a look at some of the questions that folks have left for us, I think they're very individual or specific in nature. So we want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Goretti, Kevin, your offices may be able to provide information and referral, but you largely see people toward the back end of the process when they have the lender. They're in that process. They've got a purchase and sale. They're moving through. I think Amanda's agency and Neighborworks is more equipped on the front end. So check out all the information that they have on their website, Neighborworks Housing Solutions. Their website's nhsmass.org. I'm putting up the subscribe link once again at the bottom of the page. So if you go to paceinfo.org/subscribe, you give us your email address. We're going to follow up with all the information we have from this discussion today, so you know exactly where to go with your next steps and how to get the question that you might have asked us tonight that we didn't get to. You know how to get that question answered. I want to plug Neighborworks' upcoming events. So again, we had that in the comments earlier. They have a few dates in July, some in August, virtual opportunities as well. So look into those. I want to thank again, Kevin Goretti, your wonderful programs. Peter Lonnell Walker, Third Eye. He's got it up on the screen behind him. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but they are in a drive not to purchase their own home, but to purchase their own building. They're an agency that does tremendous work with area youth and could also use your support in doing that. Right behind him there, he's got a little QR code and the link behind him. So if you have a chance to check out what they do, they are a fantastic partner of PACE, as is Neighborworks Housing Solutions. So please check that out. Please give us your information. Check back on Facebook. This event will be recorded, so you can come back and check it out at your own time. You're going to go, what was that vocabulary word I'd never heard before that they threw out at me? You can replay it like Chris would probably say. It'd be like slow motion replay at the sporting event. So all those things are available to you. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been a really great event, and you bared with us with some technical difficulties as PACE really starts to do things like this a little bit more often. We're all about connecting people. Our Housing Opportunity Center is happy to help we don't have all the programs, but we can put you in the right place and help you get connected with the right people. So again, to our panelists, Representative Markey, Carmen, everyone here, thank you so much for being available to us tonight, and we're incredibly thankful for your efforts and your contribution.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
everyone.
for having
Thanks.